Grab your jetpacks and hoverboards again, guys. We are going back to the future space world of crazy modern headphone design. This is the MYSPHERE 3.2 to be precise. That matters. Why does that matter? Well, the 3.1 is a 15 ohm headphone and the 3.2 is a 100 ohm headphone. So impedance matching is pretty important on these things, and I found that to be very true. This headphone really likes certain amps and really dislikes other amps in a way that is more pronounced than many headphones I've tried. It's quite an interesting piece of kit. The engineering on this thing is really awesome, and I guess the story is that the original audio engineers of the K1000, the legendary headphone that sort of has some of these attributes of like not being on ear or over ear, but being like a speaker sitting next to an ear, with maybe even some of these similar articulating members, that they were involved with this. But now this is, hey, what could you do, whatever, 30, 40 years on with today's technology, today's materials, today's manufacturing techniques, and this is what they came up with. So let me show you a picture from the manual here of what it looks like once you've got it on. Right, so you don't wear it like a traditional headphone. You sort of wear it with the bar going from your forehead back over your ears, and then the ear speakery things floating next to your ears. And so you've got these like height adjusting sliding tracks here that are pretty nice. You can see in there's I guess some maybe copper connecting channels that keep the so there can be kind of wire free inside there. Anyway, they slide around in there. You got sort of little tick mark measurements. You can double check your work on both sides if your head is symmetrical or not. And then you've got the ability to sort of move these guys in and out a little bit. So lots of adjustments, and that is one of the tricks of this headphone. It can go from sounding relatively uninteresting, a bit dull, to really exceptional depending on how well you've got it all dialed in for your particular head geometry. Comfort's a little bit of a factor. For me, at least, I did not find these to be terribly comfortable, even when I thought I had got them dialed pretty well in from a sound standpoint. They do have two, I think this is the cable, which is not my favorite item in the world compared to this headphone. It sort of feels like a bit of an afterthought. But this is the connection, which I think is just a standard balanced 4/4, which is kind of cool because I think it'd be pretty easy to get yourself aftermarket cables if you desired them. The stock ones are pretty short, which is sort of the opposite of what a lot of manufacturers do, which is give you way too much cable. Anyway, so what are these like to listen to? They are very interesting to listen to. I think, and I want to say, like, some big grain of salt here. I feel like I'm just kind of starting to understand these, and I gotta send them back. Feels like a headphone you could spend a lot of time sort of getting to know and dialing in. Much in the way like hearing E-stats for the first time, it took my brain a while to like rewire and not to like stop fighting them and start actually hearing them. Same kind of thing. I think at first I was just like confused and a little bit resistant to it, and the sound. The presentation is really, really interesting. I think some people might say like speaker-like. It doesn't sound like the same experience as sitting in a room listening to speakers, because you like turn your heads and the images move with you and the soundstage move with you. And so there's things that'll never be speaker-like that aren't speakers. But in the way that it sort of creates the soundstage around you, and the way in which you're sort of in the music and how it's moving towards your ear and how you get that sense of depth out in front of you of the source of music, then yeah, it's got some speaker-like qualities for sure. And, as you sort of play with how far out open you have the sort of speaker baffle, you actually can change the imaging and where you're placing. You can go from like sitting in the middle of the band to sort of lining the band up in a row in front of you. It's not like quite that cut and dry, but it's really interesting and a totally different experience from anything else I've listened to. I think the RAL had some of those similar qualities, but that also had the ribbony stuff going on, so it was its kind of own beast. This, I don't know enough about these drivers except to say things that aren't true, so I just won't, but I feel like they're more conventional dynamic drive style speakers, so kind of close to probably a speaker that most of us are used to listening to. And the sound, I guess I'd sum it up as sort of saying it's authentic. I'm just like another cop out for like natural, but basically that it wasn't an overly technical listen. I wasn't going like, ooh, wow, listen to that little sparkly bit over there, or how clean that little bit is, or how nice the separation is. I was just kind of listening to the music in a way that I get when I'm in a 2-channel mode, and what I really miss a lot of the time when I'm in headphones, not listening to a speaker setup, is that just stop listening to the gear and just listen to the music. And I think these headphones invite you to do that in a way that they're not headphones, whatever they are, floating magic space speakers. They invite you to do that in a way that sometimes I find myself fighting the temptation to listen to the gear with headphones. Strings are particularly sweet and lovely. The range seems pretty evenly distributed. There's not a lot of like making a point of emphasizing any one part over another. So that's really nice. The bass is like surprisingly good. You go like, oh, like closed backs, best bass, open backs, medium bass, whatever this is, should have no bass because it's just there's nothing there to kind of bounce it back or reverb or make it feel heavy. But the bass is really good. Percussive music is awesome on these. It's got so much energy and it's kind of popping off all around you. Do they have like super deep sub bass? No. I have heard people run these with a sub, like an actual subwoofer, for the full listening experience, which sounds pretty cool. And also quite a bit of kit to carry around with you. But yeah, there were some little moments where I felt like I could hear a little bit of distortion sometimes in the sort of lower mids or upper lower bits, especially when music got kind of intense and like stacked a bunch of stuff up, like in a soundtrack or like a really gritty, sort of alternative rock song where just like you got a lot of reverb and a lot of heavy, like, aggressive playing of a bass guitar and stuff. Like sometimes I'd get a little like almost kind of a buffeting sort of like distortion-y kind of noise. Again, I don't know if I have the right amplification for it. I don't know if it was a setup issue or if that's a trait of this headphone, that's just a very challenging thing for it to do. I also did get some like kind of overemphasized highs at certain points. Like I'd be listening to some violin that sound really great, and then they go into like an upper octave and you'd be like, oh, owie, no like. So those are my nitpicks. And comfort for me was a challenge. I think, again, I don't know if I just didn't quite have it set up right, but I was getting some pressure for sure on my forehead from these parts of the pad. And again, I bet you could probably put a little something there, and just like I put those Taconi nuggets on other headphones where I got hot spots on my head. So I feel like I said, it's a grain of salt with this one because I didn't quite have enough time to sort of finish becoming one with the MYSPHERE. But it's a very cool headphone, very unique listening experience. And if you are sort of interested in something that sounds outside of a headphone, that if you care a lot about imaging and space and you care a lot about sort of a natural, authentic presentation, this is it's so cool. It's such a cool and interesting headphone to spend time with. So I hope you all get a chance to do the same. Anyway, that's that for the MYSPHERE 3.2. I will leave it there. Thanks for checking it out. If you enjoyed this or anything else on the channel, make sure to subscribe. Lots more fun stuff on the way. Until next time, this is Signcraft signing out.